guest, Scott Friedman, who is a speaker and author, a founder. Together We Can Change the World, and just an amazing man.
Oh, thank you.
And we're so grateful to have you here today. And I have unlimited number of questions, but let me start somewhere.
Okay. Always good to start somewhere.
Yes, it's good to start somewhere. What are your values, Scott?
Well,
I know it's like a very personal questions, but we really want to know.
Well, I'm success for me is if I'm spending quality time with family and friends, if I'm making a difference in the lives of others, and if I make enough money to support the lifestyle that I have grown accustomed to and want to stay accustomed to, then for me that's success. But I'm driven more, instead of being successful, my being successful is successfully being.
Your being successful is successfully being. That's a great way to put it.
Thank you. So it's about just being. So if you're being true to yourself and you're living your value system, what's important to you, then to me that's being successful. So many people drive for success and then they get there and they say, what is success all about? And then they figure out, okay, now that how do you move from success to significance? Mm-hmm. But wouldn't it be nice to be significant along the journey as opposed to make your money and then be significant?
So what is the way to do this? Because again, we live in such a success-driven society, and it's also usually success measured in a very traditional kind of way, right? So you need to have certain professional success. Usually people talk about a certain amount of money that you want to make, or certain recognition in the field of work that you have. So, but then what you're saying, what we see also very often, people spend their entire lives getting there, and then they get there, and it's like climbing the mountain, right? And then you get in the very top, and then, so the question is, what's next? Right. And what you say is there's a way to feel significant and happy along the way getting there. How?
It's making a contribution back to society along the way. So it's figuring out your balance of life. But not just going after money. I mean, what is it that's important to you? And it's finding what fuels your soul, what fuels your heart. But I think when you focus on other people, when you're trying to make a difference in the world, then that really fuels you. And as Cabot Robert has always said, if you help other people achieve their dreams, then your dreams will be achieved.
That's a beautiful saying. And, I know that you are very passionate about helping others. And that's why you set up, right, Together We Can Change the World. So can you just maybe say us a few words about the organization and the work that you do, and the most important, actually, why you decided to do this?
Well, I've been coming to Asia for about 17 years. It's just amazing how the years fly by. Since 1998, if my math is correct, that would be 17 years. And you see so much need. I was speaking for Alcatel-Lucent maybe a decade ago, and it was when the dot-com boom was a bust, went from boom to bust, and the vice president, the senior VP, took 100 leaders to Phnom Penh, and he said, you know what, we're focusing way too much on all the things that are bad. We're focusing on everything that we shouldn't be focusing on. I mean, we really can't control the financial markets. So he says, we're going to spend a weekend with 100 leaders in Cambodia. We're going to take them to the killing fields. We're going to work with Tabitha, who rebuilds houses. And then I was hired as a speaker for a couple programs, and I participated for the weekend. I was so touched and moved by all the history of Cambodia and all the...
What was so moving?
Well, the people are they're so pure and so vulnerable, and that most of the elder population that were educated, they're the ones that were killed, and I mean it was just there was so much heartache and so much need and just my heart broke, and how synchronistic life is. At the same time, my partner in Together We Can Change the World, Yana Stanfield, who's a platinum selling musician and amazing talent.
It's an amazing partner to have.
Yeah, the partner in. Yeah, exactly. Why not? Why not? Why not aim high for your partners?
Exactly.
If you can choose. Well, you should be able to. But she had a similar experience, and we both, and she had already been involved in giving back here in Asia, and then the Global Speakers Federation. There was the president at the time had a dream, and so it all kind of came together, and we started together. We can change the world, and then I became the first president of it, and still the president of it.
Of course, it's like your baby.
Yeah. So and then it just like anything else, it just evolved into what it is today. But where we are now is we create sustainability in children's homes and women's projects across Southeast Asia. The goal is to be working on 20 projects at any given time. But what we do is we invest in people on the ground that we trust, that have a real compassion for the work, that really their mission in life is to help the less fortunate become more fortunate, to educate, to build confidence, competence, and character, to give them a chance at a more meaningful life. And that's really what it's about. So we work in the area of trafficking. We seem to have been pulled in that area because there's so much going on in Southeast Asia. Providing fresh water, but education. We made a mistake early on. I say we made a mistake. We built a children's home, and which at the time seemed like the thing to do. But what we've learned is it really isn't the best use of our money, because it's an easy to fill up any children's home, but a lot of times it's not really with orphans. It's with poor families that it's easy to drop off a child or two.
And at the house versus looking for the child at home.
Right.
Yes.
And so is that the best use of your money? What we found really the best use of our money is technology centers. So if we can get kids educated and give them the resources and the best software to learn anywhere in the world where there's an internet connection, then that's the quickest way to get up to speed to join Elance or Odesk. And that's really where.
So it's also the difference between giving them tools versus teaching them, right? But this day you give them fish, or you teach them how to fish, right? So you teach them how to fish because you want them to be independent and self-sufficient and kind of make it their own way. And it's also it's a lot about it's like a second chance in life, right? And I personally strongly believe in that.
Yes.
That there are some of us are privileged to be born in certain countries where you just have more opportunities just because you're born in a certain country.
Members of the Lucky Gene Club.
Yes, members of the Lucky Gene Club, that's right. But there are many, many countries, and particularly in Southeast Asia, that just somehow members of a different club. And and maybe just the fact that you're born in a different country, it gives you immediately less opportunities in life. So it's fantastic that people like you actually create this chance for them, to succeed and grow based on their strengths.
Yeah, it's interesting. People look at the photos and we talk about the work and they go, well, isn't that, boy, it would be so depressing. I don't think I could take it. It would break my heart. And I said, it's inspiring, because you see these kids that have nothing, and they figured out a way to access happiness. And it reminds you that no matter where you are in life, there's someone that has it a lot worse that's figured out a way to be happy. Someone that has it a lot better that's figured out a way to be miserable. And so it's really taking responsibility for your own happiness. And they do it so much better than some of us do it.
That's remarkable. Is there any particular lessons that even for yourself, since you start doing actually this kind of work, are there any personal realizations or just something that you learned for yourself?
One day, my assistant came into the office. I work in a home office, and said, "Hey, Scott, I didn't think you were here. Your car's not in the garage." I go, "You're messing with me." She goes, "You're messing with me." I go, "You're messing with me." I go, "You're messing." As we tried to determine who was messing with who, we went in the garage. Sure enough, my car was stolen over the night, and as I sat to wait for the police to come, I had one of those realizations, and it became a profound moment of gratitude, because it made me realize that, wow, a stolen car is an inconvenience, but providing water to a family that doesn't have it, to being able to really have the necessities in life. I mean, just the simple necessities. That's what's important, to be able to give back. And so that was I think gratitude is really the key to key to pretty much anything in life, is to be grateful for what you have and appreciate the people in your life, and the best gratitude of all is to be grateful for making a difference in the lives of others, their gratitude.
And you mentioned that all, and it is true, by now we know, right, all successful people, they have done plenty of mistakes, right? So could you name us maybe one or two that you have done, you feel, in your life, and that you learned from them, and therefore actually you have success you have today?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I have not made any mistakes, I feel.
That's remarkable. We should frame you in the wall.
The only mistake I made was when I thought I made that mistake, but it would turn out it was not even a mistake. But no, let's see. I think that any time we make a mistake, I mean, I wrote a book called Celebrate Lessons Learned from the World's Most Admired Organizations. And one of my favorite parts of the book is how organizations celebrate success. But it's time-released, failure is time-released success. I love what Thomas Watson said. He said that, the founder of IBM said, that success is just moving from, Winston Churchill said success is moving from failure to failure with enthusiasm. Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, said that the quickest way to success is to double your failure rate.
I love that one.
Because you never fail unless you quit. So I never look at life as failure. It's a laboratory, and the thing is to be courageous enough to take whatever risks that you need to take, and smart, calculated risks. I mean, you don't want to just do stupid things, but then just learn from them, and it's the inertia. It's playing the game. It's having the momentum of moving forward. And so when people, they have a speech that doesn't work out, and I'm like, you learn so much more from your failures than you do from your successes. And so, and that's why when I ask for feedback, it's nice to be told that you did a good job, but I'm not so interested in what I did well, even though I like to reinforce what I need to keep in mind, but it's what I didn't do well that I want to know about. And the honest assessment that, that's all of us, if we're open to feedback, then we'll continue to get better.
That's a great life philosophy. Is there anything else, like there's like a Scots wisdom, something that you follow that kind of just helps you to go through life and do things that you do, like anything particularly you believe in?
Well, I think that life is a tool to create, or our careers, whatever we choose to do in our lives, our careers are just tools to create whatever lifestyle we want to live, a chance to hang out with the people that we love, and a chance to make a difference in whatever unique way we want to make a difference in the world. So that's really where success should come from, is when you choose a career, can you do that? The more freedom you have, the better. And sometimes that's a little bit tough at first when you're starting out. But what kind of difference do you want to make, and what people would you like to associate yourself with? And the reason I love the speaking business, and part of the reason that Together We Can Change the World is so rewarding, is the people that it attracts, because it attracts people with good hearts. And so we do these global tours to these areas, where Siem Reap or Bangkok, or wherever the developing countries may be that have a lot of need. But it's a great way it's like a mastermind group with like-minded people, but like attracts like. I think that's why I'm on the show, right?
Clearly. That's a great example of law of attraction.
There you go. So I think that's a real, a big factor in determining what you're going to do is, who are the people that are going to be involved, you're going to be involved with, and is that the growth that you see for yourself, or is that the pattern that...
Yeah, it's like the famous saying, right, that every one of us is an average of 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So it's, and what I love about your philosophy, that there is a choice about it. Because many people believe that there isn't any choice, right? There's still a bit of partially, I would say, victim mentality, when if you're born in a particular circumstances and you're born being surrounded by a particular type of people, then this is all that life has. And what you are saying, and I totally agree, and I love it, that you have a choice. And it's a human being, you can choose not only what kind of life you want to live, but also what kind of people you want to be around you. And that will determine everything. It determines your career, determines the course of your life, determines the setup for your family. So anything you want to do with your life, it all comes from those choices that you make. How are you with making choices? Does it come easier to you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I think that because I believe that you can't really make a good or a bad choice. You make a choice and then you make it a good or a bad choice, or you make it a good choice. So
Love it.
Yeah, so you have to make the choice the right choice, and then as soon as you realize maybe that it wasn't the best choice, then you just have to figure out how to make a new choice to make up for the choice. that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, thanks. Doesn't make any sense to me, but so I mean, so I think the key is to be moving forward, is to make choices. Perfection, it's going to kill you.
Clearly. I mean, I'm a perfectionist myself, so I know that I'm easing off in this.
Thank God.
Thanks God, exactly. That's why the show is up. Otherwise, we would never put it out there. But yeah, it's great that it's important to make any choice, basically, versus just trying to figure out what is the best or what is the right. And also, in our world, there's so much pressure to do the right choice, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work like this. You know, in life, you just have to decide at some point, and then you make the best out of it.
And just honor what you're passionate about, and honor your values and who you are, and you know, not make choices based on what other people think is best of you, and so that you look good in the public's eyes. You know, in the end of the day, you have to, or the beginning of the day, you have to get up and look in the mirror in the morning and say, "Am I happy with who I am? Am I You know, there's too many people that go through life miserable trying to lead other people's lives that they think are good for them."
It requires courage.
It does, yeah. And you know, some situations are harder than others. When I speak to high school kids, I'm always amazed at how many of them will come up and say, "Yeah, but my parents, you know, they want me to do this and they want me to do that, and I really want to do that, and I don't know what to do." And I said, "You just have to have the courage to say to your parents, 'Hey, do you want me to be happy? You know, if that's important to you, then please let me do what's going to make me happy." Maybe that conversation, instead of fighting, just start with that simple line. And like, "Well, of course I want you to be happy. And this is what's going to make you happy." Well, maybe not. You know, maybe I know better. You know?
Yeah. So maybe if you could just share a few insights on speaking industry, maybe something that's going on behind the closed doors, and those who are trying to get in are not aware yet, but they should be actually aware if they want to succeed. Is there any dynamics that you're just good to know if you want to be in this industry?
Well, I think, you know, people always say, "Well, wow, you get a chance to travel all these places around the world, and I mean, how do you connect with people from different cultures?" Mm-hmm. And I think probably the biggest element for success in the speaking industry is three characteristics. To come from a...
I'm all ready. I'm going to write it down.
Get your pad of paper.
Yes,
ready.
yes.
It's to come from a place of humility, vulnerability, and authenticity. I think the reason that so many speakers fail is they think that they need to know it all. And so they come from this place of ego, and they're afraid to admit that they don't know something. And you know, I think in the speaking business today, whether we're a speaker or a trainer, that we're really more a facilitator of learning. Our goal is for people to walk out with more of a roadmap for their own life. Whether we come up with the answers or whether the audience comes up with the answers, I like to say that to my audience, there's a lot more wisdom in front of me than there is in front of you. So if we can somehow tap into that wisdom in the room, that's really the goal. But the only way that we can do that is if we're willing to be vulnerable, not to have the answers, and to be humble about it. I mean, there's too many people don't have that humility, that their ego gets in the way. So let go of your ego. I'm lucky that I don't have that much to begin with. So I mean, I have nothing to be egotistical about. So that makes it easy to be humble.
Come on.
But so
it's a pleasure that you check your in at the door kilometers away.
But I believe that ego is the number one killer of good decision making and keeping us from what we really want. You know, that in expectation and entitlement, but I think if that sense of humility, authenticity, just be who you are. People really appreciate you just being willing to be vulnerable to share the lessons and especially when you're going through it, you know, because they say, well, how do you know, if you're speaking, what do you look out for in Asia or Singapore, or, what Malaysia or the Middle East, especially because the customs are so much different. I said, you do your homework ahead of time, but even then, you're going to be in a situation where, I remember I was speaking in Bahrain, and it was this big kickoff to this program, and then they had certificates afterwards, and the first person, man, I came up, congratulated him, gave him a certificate, shook his hand, and then a lady came up and shook her hand and congratulated her. And then another lady came up and I went to shake her hand and for her, many Muslims that when talking to the lady that she kind of pulled back and I so you're in that moment.
I just can imagine you trying to shake the hand.
And then and then you realize what was going on and I said, okay, well, will a nice smile do? And the audience laughed a little bit, and I smiled, and she smiled back, and so it was comfortable enough. So then we kept on going, and and I thought, note to self, okay, let them put out their hand. That was what I was taught. But when you're in the moment, you forget that, right? So we went on a little while further. Another lady did shake my hand, then another man, and I got wrapped up again, and I put out my hand, and the lady pulled back, and you're in that moment, because the audience is thinking, okay, didn't he? Come on,
stupid! Yes.
Yeah, to learn it the first time, and so you have to be vulnerable.
Why did you say?
So I thought real quick, and I said, okay, I know what you're thinking. That I should have caught it the first time. I said, I'm a little slow, but I'm worth waiting for.
Oh.
So it was a callback line that I've used before in a different context, but it's just being willing to be playful in the moment, or being vulnerable. See, that's the thing is, just be real, be authentic, and that's what people want, because then people are willing to open up, and they're willing to see their lives through your vulnerability. Stories transcend cultures, so if you can tell your story and be open and vulnerable in that telling of the story, so that people can see their lives within that story, then they're going to learn so much more than if you're trying to be the hero of the story and where people think, geez, I could never be like that. Me, I'm a lot easier to be like, because of all the faux pas along the way.
So then when you tell your story on stage, I mean, you still talk about it as yourself, right? So how do you present, in terms of presentation, and not to make yourself the hero of your own life and then therefore being so detached in people's eyes from where they are, how do you do this? Like, how do you tell your story without putting yourself on the pedestal, right?
Okay,
so that's kind of...
Well, a couple things. One, look at your I versus you ratio. Right? So speakers that tell their story, if there's a lot more I's than you's, then it's more about them. So if there's more yous, then it's really, you're involving them, you're asking questions, you're making your story their story. But to start with, it's how you pick your story. If you choose to tell stories where you learn the lessons because of your failures, as opposed to, you see people that they get up and they tell a story that, how they achieve this greatness. And it's like, all right, well,
okay,
it's
yeah,
nice.
yeah, but how do I get there, right?
Right. As opposed to, if you can still become great, but tell the stories that the greatest lessons you learn from your failures, because they go, oh, I can relate to that, because I feel just like that all the time. I make those mistakes.
So audience relates better to failures than to success. Kind of, it's just more human.
Right, because you're, obviously if you're in that position, you've done something, right? And so they can read your bio of how wonderful you may be, but in how you got to being wonderful, share the failures and the lessons that brought you to that point. That's really what people want to hear, because that's more real, that's more authentic and more humble.
Oh, that's very profound. I love it.
Thank
I
you.
love
Once in a while.
Oh, I know.
Finally.
Finally, we hear something profound. You also use a lot of stories and humor in your presentations. Is there like a favorite short story, or maybe, I don't know, joke or something that people love across all cultures that always works, that you would like to share with us? I'm not sure how it works to ask for jokes on spot, but...
I think, again, it goes back to what we're talking about. It goes back to stories that universal material is best. So to talk about family or to talk about kids that people can relate. I tell a story when I'm talking about if I wanted my dad to lose his sense of humor when I was growing up, all I would have to do is bring home my grades. So 7th grade, he beats me to the mailbox because we sent our grades through the mail, and he pulls out my report card at dinner. He says, "Scott, what is this?" I said, "Dad, it's one person's opinion." "Do we need to talk about it?" "Yes, I think we need to talk about it. How come Andy doesn't get C's and D's on his report card?" Andy was one of my best friends growing up. I could never quite measure up. I said, "Dad, you can't compare me to Andy. We're so much different." He says, "How are you so much different?" I said, "Dad, Andy has very bright parents." So then,
Oops.
so I couldn't sit down for a week.
Clearly.
So again, it's self-effacing because I'm bringing the humor back on me, and then it's people see it, they see their own parents and they say, "Oh,
I can relate to that."
Yeah,
Yes,
I can
yes.
see if I would say that to my parents, and then and then also when I speak to the speaker, it teaches the lessons about pausing too, because when you're giving your punchlines, then you let the audience write the punchlines. When I say, oh, Dad, it's one person's, and you just pause, and so people are like, one person's opinion. Then it's funny because it's the little juxtaposition, and then well, Andy has very bright parents. So it's you tell a story.
That's a good trick to use for the storytelling, yes,
Yeah.
for not only for speakers, but in fact it could apply to everybody.
Exactly.
You talk to customers, clients, staff, employees, founders, anybody, right? So that's a great way to use. Thank you so much. That was highly enjoyable, very informative, and very audience-centered. So we did a great job. And that was Scott Friedman, a person who just shared so much wisdom and tips, starting on everything from how to set up your own foundation and actually help to those who are less fortunate, to how to become a professional speaker, or if you're not a professional speaker, how can you just take tips and elements of professional speaking and integrate this in your career choice and in your daily life so you can connect with people in a profound way. And remember to be, is it humility, authenticity? Vulnerability, the most important. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ultimately, you get some form of success, right? But we also celebrate every little success that we have. But I think what is most important is your focus on what you want to do, and that carries that spirit of breaking through to success.